The man at the center of an alleged excessive force arrest in 2023 was back in court today. Hamail Waddell's case sparked outrage across the community as videos from that early New Year's Day arrest made their way onto social media. 12 News' Kyle Spisak has the details from today's hearing.
Trial continued on Thursday morning in Binghamton in the case of Hamail Waddell. He is facing disorderly conduct and resisting arrest charges stemming from an altercation that occurred in the early morning hours of New Year's Day 2023. Public outrage rose as videos were posted to social media showing the incident. What you see is Binghamton police officer Brad Kaczynski using what the New York State Attorney General's office refers to as, quote, excessive force during Waddell's arrest. This prompted members of the community to draw comparisons to the death of George Floyd following an excessive force arrest back in 2020 in Minnesota. Waddell's trial began on Monday but was cut short before resuming on Thursday to give the defense time to transfer video evidence to a thumb drive. Waddell became emotional as he took the stand recalling the events that occurred, saying the event was traumatic after seeing what happened to George Floyd a couple of years prior. Waddell says that he was never the aggressor in any of the fights that broke out that morning, but instead he was attempting to break up the fights and protect his friend who was involved. Waddell also said he stepped in to help when Binghamton police did not intervene. Prosecuting the case was Broome County District Attorney Paul Battisti. He claims that Waddell was told to leave the area on several occasions but refused before his eventual arrest. Battisti also says that once Waddell was in cuffs, he continued to pull away from police while yelling slurs at the officers. Waddell testified that during the fight, he never threw a punch, but Battisti says that Waddell can be seen on camera telling others arrested that he did throw a punch. In closing remarks, Battisti claimed that Waddell was an aggressor in the situation, while Waddell's lawyer Edward Kopko claimed there was not probable cause for an arrest and the arrest was racially motivated because of Waddell being a black male. Judge William Palella is taking time to review the evidence before he announces a verdict later in October. I'm Kyle Spisak, 12 News, Broome County.